Welcome back to Restore Thrive. Today we're talking about movement archetypes for the lower body. Remember, movement archetypes are the start and finish positions that every athlete and every human being should be able to get into. Without full range of motion and capacity to control those ranges of motion, we know that our athletes and the clients we work with are at higher risk of injury because of those incomplete mechanics. Today we're going to talk about the second lower body movement archetype, which is what we call the hinge. The hinge position is basically with our feet under our hips, our knees relatively straight. Can I fold myself in half where my upper body is parallel with the ground? My back is straight. You can see my knees bend a little bit. What I don't want to see is my knees here. I want those knees straight, back straight in that position. So take a minute real quick, do this in front of a mirror, or have your friend take a picture of you with their phone. And then if you don't have that full range of motion, what we're going to go through now is a couple simple mobilizations to open you up. Now remember, in this hinge shape, there can be a couple limiting factors when I get over into this position. It can be my hip joint proper that just doesn't have the ability to rotate fully. It can be my low back tissue being tight and holding me up as I try to go down, so I have to round through my upper body to get down there. Or it can even be my hamstrings being tight and holding me up as I start to bend forward. So we're going to go after all three of those elements today. First with the hip joint. So we're going to grab our jump stretch band here. We've got this attached to a pole. You can attach this to a rack or close this in a door. And we're going to do a posterior hip mobilization to take the hamstring out of the equation. And what we find a lot of times when people bend forward and try to close their upper body and their pelvis down over their hip, if the hamstring is tight, it makes it hard to do that. So with the knee bent, I'm not getting the hamstring involved. I can kick my free leg out, the band's pulling straight back on my hip, and all I'm going to do is try to close that upper body down and that hip down past the knee here. The band pulling back is stretching the back of my hip capsule. As I let my upper body start to come closer to my thigh, I'm approximating my upper body and my pelvis with that femur coming into the socket. And what that allows me to do is reclaim that shape. So all I'm going to do is rock back and forth out of this position for 1 to 2 minutes. 2 is preferable, 1 is minimum effective dose. And once I do that for 2 minutes, I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So spend 2 minutes aside there if you can. What we'll do from here then is grab a ball. A softball is a perfect size, and a nice seat, firm seat to sit on, and we're going to go after your hamstring flexibility. So with the ball, we'll place this underneath the hamstring and then lay that thigh over the ball. I can use 1 or 2 hands to keep some pressure over the ball. And then all I'm going to do is start to move that leg side to side. Remember, that hamstring muscle runs vertically down your thigh. If we're trying to stretch out muscle tissue, we want to go across the grain of the muscle, not in line with the grain of the muscle. So I can move side to side. I can add a little bit of extension and flexion at the knee if I'm over a spot that's really tight, but I want to spend some time going from just above my knee to all the way up just under my butt, and making sure that I can add a little bit of compression to that tissue. And remember what we talk about in this series: anytime we're doing soft tissue work, normal muscle tissue shouldn't hurt to compress. So I should be able to put my hand here and really sit heavy over the ball, and it shouldn't hurt to be in that position. We'll spend 2 minutes per side on this, making sure we clear both hamstrings. And then the last piece here, if you have a chair or if you're using a box like this, we can just flip the box over and lay on the floor and go after that low back stiffness. So the ball that we're using here is much smaller, and we're going to put it a little bit higher here. We don't want to be back on the hip or in your glute. We want to be above the pelvis, below the rib cage. And what we'll do is pin that ball in there by laying back, getting our legs elevated on the box. And like some of our other hip mobilizations we've talked about, we can change the pressure just by dropping our legs over to the side that we have the ball on. So we don't have to lift our hips and roll around swinging our hips from side to side. We can rest our hips on the ground, let our upper body relax, and just use our legs to start to add pressure there. The goal is to kind of explore that whole section. It's almost like a rectangle between the bottom of your pelvis or top of your pelvis and the bottom of your rib cage, where you'll move around. Make sure you're just clearing all those areas. It shouldn't hurt to add that tension again. Spend 2 minutes per side. Any spot that's tight that you're not working through, use that contract relax technique where we add pressure, take a breath in, push the ball out, tighten up, and then exhale. Let that pressure go, let the ball sink into that muscle tissue a little bit farther. Remember, sometimes it takes 3 or 4 reps for that contract relax method to really take effect. Once you've done those 3 mobilizations, what we want you to do is retest. Again, how do we know if an intervention in terms of improving your mobility is effective? That retest should show a difference in terms of your ability to move well. So I'll get nice and tall again. Try to keep my knees as straight as I can. Hinge forward from the hips and see, can I get my upper body to parallel with the ground with my knees straight, shoulders pulled back, everything in my upper body in line. So give these mobilizations a try. If you have any more questions about how to improve your hip mobility, your hinge position, or your performance, you can find us at restorethrive.com.